There is no cause for concern for the Jaguar fans after their first preseason game. And I'm going to tell you, it's all about Trevor Lawrence in just a second here on Locked on Jaguars.
You are Locked on Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked on Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked on Jaguars podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcast each and every day, whether you watch or listen. Make sure you tap in to that location. That's right. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked on NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Good morning and hello to the everydayers. Glad you can join me here. Like I said, if you're an everydayer, you already know it's your team every day. If you're new here, welcome. I'm glad you're here, and I'll give you a reason to come back. By the way, I've covered this team for a couple of decades, so the perspective that I have on training camp, while if you're not familiar with me, it may sound a little different, but it's kind of my way of looking at this thing through a certain lens, and that lens is the Jaguars fan base. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, at the end of the show, we're going to get to Trevor and Travis's impact on this team. And it has nothing to do with anything that they do while on the field. It's just a matter of who they are. In the middle, Cam's superpower advantage, that is Cam Little and his 70-yard field goal kicking self. We'll hit that. But we'll start with the good, bad, and the ugly from the preseason game. And I have to give you my apologies for not tapping in more this weekend. I had a tiny bit of a setback that did not allow me to speak for long periods of time. So my wife actually was happy about that part of it. My wife was actually pretty happy about the fact that I could not speak very much this weekend, but you guys weren't happy, but you were very, very patient, and I'm glad to be here. All right, the first preseason game came and went. Pittsburgh and Jacksonville, 6-point disadvantage for the good guys, losing that game the other day. I'm not going to bore you with going through statistics and all of those things from the game. You saw it. You know what the score is. You've had 36 hours to process it all. But I will give you some highlights from it. The highlights is the first thing that I wanted to watch and see was, can they transfer whatever they've been working on to the game field? And you guys know that that's been a big source of a headache for all of us. Slow starts for the Jaguars. The person at the key of those slow starts, in my opinion, was Trevor, because he came out often and throwing high. So I did post the other night prior to the game starting. I wanted to make sure that we saw Trevor Lawrence come out relaxed and poised and putting the ball where he wanted it to be. For the most part, that's exactly what you saw. He looks like an improved Trevor Lawrence. He did not look like someone who, for the last 4.5, 5 years, have been playing behind a porous offensive line. He did not look like someone who was gun shy because of those things. So that's the good part for me. The bad part of it is, where's the defense, right? I got a theory about that, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. And the ugly was obviously the fact that Pittsburgh had their backups in on offense, at least at the skill position, and they went down the field at will twice in a row. So I got this little theory about that, right? That's going to have y'all relax just a little bit. One, both offense and defense are putting in new systems. And we know that. They, especially on defense, they're going from a man-to-man heavy team to a zone heavy team. And I asked head coach Dave Campo, as well as I was talking to Mark Duffner, former head coach and as well as defensive coach in this league for years, decades. Almost as old as, I'm going to say Mark's old as me, but I was asking the other day about zone and T-stepping and how you play it and why it's so difficult for guys that are usually man-to-man, going man-to-man. So it comes down to dudes that are used to playing man-to-man. It's like, I got him. I got this guy. You can even relate this if you play basketball. I got this guy, and I'm going to follow him, right? But then you have to play a spot when you're playing a zone, and that's what the Jaguars are doing. But it does require you that when someone is in your area, you got to stick to them, right? It requires you to do that. It also requires you to be able to pass guys off and have communication. Well, this new defense, they're 2 or 3 weeks in, man. They don't have all of that. And mind you, they're playing a team in Pittsburgh that hasn't changed a coach in 18 years, the head coach. The Pittsburgh Steelers are what they have been for the last 2 decades, and it's the same thing. And they have the same offensive coordinator that they had a year ago with mostly same players. The guys that you saw playing, if they weren't rookies, they were people who were there before. The new guys, Aaron Rodgers, Metcalf, they didn't play. So this comes down to you're playing the team that is probably, from an organizational standpoint, the most familiar with themselves and who they are. And now you got a team that has a totally revamped staff, a lot of new players, guys playing offense and defense, and dudes that want to do their job and be where they're supposed to be, but they have to instinctively know when a guy's in the area, when not to pass off a player. This is like watching the sausage get made, and this is the things that I was telling you about. Nobody wants to see how it's made, and that's what the preseason is. You got fans going to fan, and I know it's social media. I'm getting to the point where I want us to separate. They need a sarcasm font, or they need a font that says, this is your stat quo tweet or whatever it is here on social media. This is what we're doing. I'm just stirring the pot, because there were people that have already acted like they're giving up on this team, saying same old Jags. It's not the same old Jags. They're nowhere near the same team. And I know the result in a preseason game seemed like that, but when you don't add logic to it, this is what happens. You come up with these crazy opinions. I'm not worried about that, because I saw most of the starters in the second quarter, or well, at least at the beginning of the third quarter after halftime, in civilian clothes, laughing and having fun. Y'all ain't seen what they're going to be up to yet. You haven't. So there's no reason to draw a conclusion on anything other than when you want to compare individual players and wonder how that player is going to adapt to what he's doing new and what he's doing differently. Guys just have to learn to play with their eyes and their instincts, as opposed to worrying about getting to a spot. And I think that's what comes with repetition. It comes with more familiarity. When you're really sure about what you're supposed to do, then you can start using your instincts and your eyes to take those chances. But right now, they're playing with their brain. And I know sometimes people may not want to hear that, but that's what they're doing. They're playing with their mind, making sure they're in the right spot. And Pittsburgh knew exactly what they were doing, and they just went right down the court, right down the field, and scored at will both times. The offensive line did look better. There's a lot of people there was rumors that Chuma Udoka was going to start in front of Pat McCary. Well, he actually did, but McCary was just being held out and wasn't playing. I doubt very seriously that the highest paid offensive lineman that they went out and signed in free agency is not in their plans to start. I think they're just probably going to give him a little bit of a light load, because I think he's the one that's going to play the most snaps. Because when somebody goes down, he's going to have to do a lot of moving around. So that's the good, the bad, and ugly. It wasn't as bad as you think if you use a little bit of logic to look at it. The good thing was Trevor Lawrence looked decent. The running backs looked good. There's a lot of competition, too, especially in the defensive backfield. We had some young guys really stepped up and played well. I saw Yasir Abdullah flying all over the place. And some of those young members of the secondary as well. I'll go through a little bit of this roster here in segment 2. But I want to first get to Cam Little. Made a 70-yard field goal that won't go in the record books because it is a preseason game. However, that little dude is special. And that extra little distance, those extra 10 yards that he can kick that field goal that nobody else can, or those 10 or 15 yards, makes a whale of a difference in the approach of this football team and will allow them to win some close games down the stretch. I'll get into that and how the field goal right before the half changed the atmosphere in the building and probably in the hearts of Jaguar fans. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning up with a fantasy football experience like never before. The Playmakers and Showtime League, that's what I'm in, and we're playing on Yahoo Fantasy for the 18th straight year, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo. where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give the new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars on this Monday. Glad to be back with you guys after a couple of days of hiatus of trying to get myself together. But look, nothing brings people back together like football and happy moments in football, viral moments involving the Jaguars that aren't negative, right? Cam Little made a 70-yard field goal, and he barely make it. He barely got across the crossbar, but it was straight the entire time. I like how it broke down when Liam Cohen says they had one more play. They ran a play, and they got to a certain point, and he turned and looked at Cam. They were on a 47-yard line on their side of the field. I don't know if y'all realize that. He kicked that thing from the 40-yard line from the Jaguars end of the field and made a field goal. What does this mean? People calling him Justin Tucker 2.0 already, right? I thought they were doing that to Brandon Aubrey from Dallas last year. But what this means for them is the Jaguars can get points without getting a whole bunch of yards as long as they're not deep in their own territory. This says if you start at the 25, dog, and you get 2 first downs and you stall out, y'all going to get 3 points. You don't even have to get the ball to midfield. I don't know if he's going to make all of them, but he's a threat to make them all, especially in in-game scenarios where teams got to play you a certain way, because normally teams back up. They'll back up off of a team and say, hey, man, they ain't going to get – they need 3, but they got 12 seconds left. You can't do that. You can't back up with them. Now you got to – you might give up a bigger play, because now you're saying, no, you got to play them honestly. We're not just going to give these dudes 10 yards if they're on their own 35 or 13 seconds left. We can't give them 10. We can't give them a cushion. Can't do it, because that kid can make it from over there. And they're going to try it. This is an advantage that the Jaguars can have over a lot of teams. When you think back to them losing 8 games last year by 1 score or less. And now they got this dude. And once again, my man, them Jags don't want me to say it, but shout out to Trent Baalke for picking Cam Little. I also found out something, by the way. My boy Ryan Green, hacker, told me something. He knows who Baalke would have picked in the draft. They would have taken another defensive lineman if Trent Baalke would have. Somebody told him some stuff. Trent Baalke probably would have taken a defensive lineman. I got to shout out to him, man, for giving me that. But it's crazy. I give him credit, and I got to give him credit. But Cam Little can change the Jaguars. He can change things. He can make things a lot easier for his quarterback, make things a lot easier for the coach when you can always come up with points. Combine that with the fact that the offense was a little bit vanilla the other day. Might scare some people, but it doesn't scare me because I'm used to this and I know how this works. What the thing you have to know is when you combine this with the potential big playability of those wide receivers and those running backs, this makes the Jaguars a real serious problem for people. It absolutely does. This makes them a real problem for people. You're going to have to guard them all game in every single scenario because they got a kicker that can kick it from St. Augustine or from Camden County, whichever way they're going in the stadium. It's a big move for Jacksonville, and I like that. Let me talk about the defense real quick again, because they have to be able to get the Jaguars the ball back for all of these advantages to happen. I'm not concerned about their ability to stop the run yet. I am not concerned about them not being good enough at the defensive backs yet. I will tell you that I've come to the conclusion that they're a better defense with Travis Hunter playing corner. So I think because of Parker Washington's emergence, while the Jaguars will still use Travis Hunter a whole bunch on offense, I have been saying this since that kid was a sophomore at Colorado. He makes an impact. He makes a visible impact more as a wide receiver. He puts points on the board. I think he makes a tremendous impact in the passing game because they had a coverage, quote unquote, coverage sack the other night. And the target was the dude that Travis was guarding, or that was in Travis's area. And he baited the quarterback to hold on to the ball a little longer. Now, he did miss a tackle, but that's not a concern to me. I think this tells you that he's going to play a little bit more defense than these first couple of weeks have basically given us a hint that he would. I think he is, because I think he's just that valuable, that instinctive, and he causes quarterbacks to think twice. I think on offense, really, he is dynamic. He's all of that. The Jaguars have Brian Thomas Jr., Diami Brown, and Parker Washington is having a whale of a camp. That doesn't mean that Travis isn't 1A with Brian Thomas. I think he is. It just means that, look, they can get it done over there too. You know, people were thinking they need more help at wide receiver. They can really get it done at corner. No. And if you're speculating as to why they played it so much, Liam Cohen basically was, I think, I want to make sure I get this right. I think he was talking to Kay Adams. If he wasn't talking to Kay, it was someone else. And he said, and somebody sent it to me, he said, the reason they played Travis Moore. I want y'all to listen. Remember, I said my instructors used to knock on the table when he's telling you something prophetic or something that he already knew. This is something I told y'all before training camp and all of that stuff even started. He's working more on offense because that's where more development was needed with him. He can roll, to quote somebody, I think it was either Cohen or Deion Sanders, somebody, he can roll out of bed and go play corner right now. There's a lot more to it from a timing perspective on offense, though, and learning a new playbook and learning mechanics that most rookies don't come unless you play at Ohio State. Most rookies don't come up in here knowing the proper mechanics and the proper way to do things. He does. He does, because he had to learn them. His footwork is way better now than it was when he first started camp. This thing, he absorbs stuff really good. I'm gonna get into him and more Trevor and talk about how I was pleased with the confidence level of the starters and their demeanor even after they went out of the game. And I'll tell you why it's important in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show sponsored, brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories and not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever before. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with the killer last-minute deals. All right, man, if you're tired of all that scrolling and trying to figure it out, take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, and it's guaranteed. Moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. As always, your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. First preseason game went by. Jaguars lose. Mason Rudolph looks like the next coming of Ben Roethlisberger, and the restless are native. The natives are restless. I said the restless are native. The natives are restless because it didn't match the enthusiasm. It didn't match the things that they wanted to see. Well, it depends on what you're looking for. Two things that I noticed is Trevor Lawrence was very, very relaxed. They found ways to matriculate the ball down the field. They looked very, very competent in their approach and how they were going to do things. For a first-time coaching staff, there was only one time where a dude ran on the field late, I think. But they got to get the penalties, too. The penalties on the offensive line, I think it hampered them from scoring touchdowns early in the game. Anton Harrison put him behind the sticks, immediately put him behind the sticks. And the Jaguars were trying to fight to get back ahead of the sticks, of the down and distance, and they just didn't do it while the starters were in. Trevor played one series, looked very, very good in my opinion, and I think they saw a lot of things they wanted to see, taking things from training into an actual game. Now, I know it didn't count, but it does. I think Travis Hunter played well, but the thing that I've warned people about with Travis is it's the Reggie Bush thing. And what that means is Reggie Bush was known for a bunch of big plays. And when he got to the league, those big plays became harder to make. Where he would get away before, he almost got away. And Travis Hunter was used to catching the ball and turning and outrunning people and out-angling people. Well, a couple of times he lost on the first downs. And then he took a poor angle on the tackle. And I don't think he got stiff armed. Some people saying he got stiff armed, but he took a poor angle on the tackle and he ended up falling down and missing the tackle. These things are going to happen, man. It's the NFL. You can get caught up in the hype thinking that every single time a player goes out there and everything he does is always going to work. It's not. It's the National Football League. But why am I okay with all of that? One, I told you, be careful watching how the sausages are made. But the other thing is the confidence level is on 10. I saw the dudes on the sideline. Confident, they ain't worried about none of that. They know that they still have stuff to work on. They know what they're doing in camp. They know everything was super, super vanilla for them. And they're a new bunch of people getting used to stuff, playing against a team that has been basically constructed. It seems like Pittsburgh is the same team they've been for the last 30 years, right? And Mike Tomlin at 18 years is the longest tenured coach. So there was going to be some things that looked easier for Pittsburgh than they did for Jacksonville. And I ain't got no problem with that. But it's a warning. It'll show you that there will be a lot of routine 4, 5, and 6 yard catches, and Travis won't break those tackles like he did in high school and college. That's just something that we have to make sure that we understand that reality. The other part of it is I'm just not going to ever think that with the team that they have that they're going to be out of a football game. I did notice that the offensive line, they gave us that stalemate that everyone talks about. Just like, man, we ain't got to be dominant. Let's just give us a stalemate. Just give us a reason to believe that we'll be okay, right? Well, they did that. They held their own. I thought Walker Little looked really good. I thought, they could still be more physical in the run game, obviously, but Pittsburgh is a very, very good team. A lot of talk about the hospital ball that Trevor Lawrence served up. He could probably stick that in there a little bit, but that's football. Maybe throw it a little behind him and drop him down so he doesn't take that hit that Brian Thomas Jr. took in the first quarter. There's a way you can place that ball so that doesn't happen. But everyone also acknowledges it was just a very good play by the Pittsburgh defensive back, and he read it and he saw it. And sometimes that's what happens with plays. Sometimes guys, this is football. They practice too, and they get a beat on you. Everybody does everything they're supposed to do. It was just the right defensive call and the right player in the right place at the right time. So there's no panic for me with that. I'm not worried about him serving up his wide receivers, getting banged up across the middle and all of that. No, I just wanted to see him look confident, and I saw that. I wanted to see Trevor look like he was in command, and I saw that too. You see a big difference when he left the game and they brought in Mr. Nick Mullins. I'm a little bit concerned now about the backup quarterback position. But, if we get into the point where we're worried about the backup because the starter isn't there, you're probably in a bad place anyway. Or anywho, how they say it. But, yeah. Travis and Trevor with the confidence, Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, Jordan Lewis, Foy Oluokun, and a newly revamped, rebuilt-looking version of Devin Lloyd. All of those new running backs. I'm telling you, man. I was a little bit down for a minute because I thought everyone would go Debbie Downer on it. And then all of a sudden, this little 173-pound kicker saved the day and gave the Jaguars fans and team something to really, really be joyful and enthusiastic about. And it just changed the total feeling and the total atmosphere, if you will, of the entire evening. So I'm still super optimistic about this team and their prospects this year after game one. I like what I saw from Trevor. I like what I saw from Travis. I like what I saw from Diamond Brown. Even the play calling on 4th and 1, the jet sweep. We saw creativity. We saw Liam Cohen do a bunch of different things to create 2nd and short as opposed to 2nd and 9. And the obligatory run. If you get an incompletion on the first down, you don't have to run it on second down to get those 2 yards and get yourself put in 3rd and 8. So all of the stuff where in the past where you could pinpoint exactly what they were going to do and who they were going to try to do it with and why they were going to try to do it. Well, now, you know what? It's not the case anymore. They're going to be different. And even we have to admit Saturday night was very, very vanilla, if you will, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Lots to look forward to. The cuts. I don't think they do any cuts this week, but they have another preseason game. We're going to talk this week about people we think need to step up because folks ain't gonna sit here and just let you just slough or think that you're safe to be on the team when you're not making plays. I think we've misconstrued a little bit James Gladwell as well as Liam Cohen by thinking that, well, because they're nice guys, that maybe they ain't gonna be mean and tough guys when they have to. Oh yeah, they will. The toughest you can be on a person is telling him he ain't gonna be playing or he's gonna be sitting over there next to you. So I saw a lot. I want to see a little bit more from certain players. We're gonna make sure we get to those guys later on in the week as we continue with training camp and getting ready for game 2 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, man, I got to let y'all know about your second listen, and that needs to be Locked On Bets. All right, make that your second listen. And check it out because betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily Major League Baseball locks and can't miss football futures that soon won't be futures. They'll be right in your face when the season starts. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, hanging there with me, man. We'll get some more coverage in here tomorrow. See what these guys are saying after camp continues this week, but no major injuries. The Jaguars came out of the game pretty healthy. It's just about getting through these next couple of weeks and getting to the real regular season. So you guys just hang tough with us and me here on Locked On Jaguars. I appreciate you spending 27 minutes with me today. You guys take care.